Mission a fucking accomplished. Goon Swarm is not a threat.
Good luck with your all's dumb nullsec war snuffed out #1. Anunnaki Keepstar is next, and then come on.
There, then you were just going to fucking magically jump into EVE Online in a system, and it was just going to load, and nobody was going to call you fucking stupid later?
There's an Eagle fleet that has dive bombed a Megatron fleet. This is the bravest shit I have ever seen in my life.
The best possible shot to do something to the Imperium, and you fucked it up.
I talked a lot of shit over the last couple months. It's time to fucking eat some. And I showed up here to eat shit. Like,
the reason that this keeps started and get contested, and I cannot make this up, is because of tie-dye.
Guess where goons are going to live after this war is over?
Current plan is 319, I believe, right?
Hell.
Hi, sick.
I can
People
tell you very
overreacting.
clearly, our Diplos didn't even fucking care. Like,
White daddy.
Good evening to everybody who lives in the correct part of the world. Here we are with an overwhelming number of Europeans versus Redline. Obviously, you know, because
Toxic?
he lives
First
in America,
off.
he thinks that he can take on everybody else. Go on.
I said toxic, first off, and I could take on everybody else, as a matter of fact.
Well, maybe you could. We can't have any guns, so maybe in close quarters combat, we're sort of, especially in Britain, we're experts at knifing people. So
Jeez,
make sure you get a little bit of range on us first, which is
European
a
guy
you
trying
know
not to complain about
absolutely
not having guns. What happened there?
absolutely typical nullsec tactic is to be as far away from your enemy as possible. Tell you who is allegedly not going to be far away from the enemies now. Not just goons, but also the initiative. We'll be checking in on that a little bit later to see just how close we reckon the initiative is willing to get to their enemies in the name of fun. But first of all, last weekend we had the State of the Goonian. Of course, a State of the Goonian. Correct me if I'm wrong. The last one there was to announce the move into the nearly the drone regions. The region name escapes me.
Tenerifis?
We've had
Is that the region?
sort of, you know,
Oh,
about
Chris.
once every year to once every 2 years, maybe somewhere in between. I think I'm sort of beginning to see a cycle that a lot of younger players aren't old enough to see, perhaps, where war were declared and then not a lot actually really happens. With us, we've got the Peace Moose as well.
Hello.
You've been around long enough to perhaps see this kind of a cycle. How fun do you reckon this war is going to get for its participants?
Oh, it's going to be great fun. As long as you like bashing undefended fortizars, I'm sure you're going to have a whale of a time.
They are having fun. They're having fights over there.
Hey, listen,
Don't take
I'm
that
sure
away
that
from
they're
them.
having fun. I'm not going to tell you that these people who are enjoying playing the game are not having fun, right? It's just they're going to invade the type of region that they themselves would have referred to as floodplains in the past. Sort of like a dismissive kind of like, oh yeah, we don't mind that that's being invaded type thing. I really definitely hope that this breaks out into all-out war. However, I've kind of seen about 5 years in a row that maybe it's not a good idea to drink the Kool-Aid every single time with this. I mean, what
Okay,
does a modern
What do you mean?
EVE
What do you
Online
mean by
player-
Kool-Aid?
How? Okay, I'll put it this way. Somebody, a modern EVE player, as in they join in this era of the game, how long do they play for?
What depends
You
on
know-
what they do.
Well, I'll tell you what, Redline, how long have you been playing for?
Since 2018.
Since 2018. So, you know, we got Redline here, who's getting his 7-year badge. Puce. When did you start playing?
The Big Seven.
2006, I think,
2006.
but not played consecutively. There's been
No.
periods.
But nonetheless, you know, you've seen the shape of the game since, for coming up on 20 years. Don't think about that too hard. I've been playing since about 2007, so a little bit younger than Puce here. But I certainly remember a time when war were declared, and it meant that what was actually invaded was where the enemy actually lived. I don't think I could necessarily refer to the region they're going to be invading as somewhere that PanFam actually lives. Maybe somebody in the chat can tell me which glorified renters might actually just live there. Yeah, I don't expect anything particularly good here. But what I do expect is for the vast majority of the Imperium to whoop and holler and make many posts to Reddit, some of which I know have got on your nerves, Peace.
Oh no.
Whoop and holler that they're having a great war, that it's real war, that they're the big winners of this war against a sort of non-important region.
I don't think it's that it's a non-important region. It's just that it's the region that stands between Goons and the Drone Lands, basically, where Horde and PanFam live. So like
okay,
you can't just go right to the homeland. You've got to take what's next door first.
You probably could if you put enough Ansiblexes down.
Okay, but in order to put Ansiblexes down, you have to own the space. Like that was the point. Is that taking this region gives them Ansiblexes straight to their front door.
As a question, then, do you think they're going to continue to go straight to their front door through? Is it Scalding Pass and Inn's Mother that is being invaded right now?
Yes.
Once they have cleared it out, glassed the region, removed the fortizars, got the Sov, do you think they're actually going to keep going?
I mean,
or do you think that they're going to go home after 1 to 2 months, all shaking dicks with each other and say, "Good job, everyone! Good job! Good war! We were good at war. Look, we got it all."
It depends.
Look, we've had our war. Go back to ratting for however long, and once we get a bit antsy again, we'll go and have another one.
It depends
We're
on
going to
what
have another
they're
glassing campaign in a sort of suburban estate rather than in the middle of the city.
You guys have no respect for this nullsec warfare stuff, do you?
Do you know what? I absolutely agree with you, Redline.
What's the deal? You expect us to be like, oh, look at those low-sec guys. They drop dreads on each other. They got huge cocks. But, like, we go to war and you're like, who cares?
Well, has there been a big old dread brawl in the war yet? What's the biggest thing that's died in the war so far? Is it a Fortizar?
It's been a week. The State of the Union was last Saturday. It's been a week. The first thing is that there's got to be move-ups getting to the area, but there have already been fights.
Yeah.
And there will continue to be fights, hopefully more than we're having on our side of the fight, which I'm sure Carmen will be more than happy to tell us about shortly.
There was a hell that died. That's probably the biggest thing, right?
Ooh,
yeah, what was it doing? Because I looked at the kill mail for that, and it looked like it was actually PvP fit.
So was this the Hell and the Zern and the other thing that were out of jump range of Goon's staging? Or was it Horde staging? Which way around was it?
What were they doing, I think, is a question that everyone was asking themselves, including them afterwards.
I mean, here's the thing. If we caught a random Hell far from home in low sec and we killed it, we would refer to it as we caught and killed a random Hell rather than first blood in the war,
So my understanding was it was like some random dudes who took it upon themselves to go and try and reinforce a Horde Fortizar, and then
props to them in that case.
Fast forwarded to the finding out phase.
You just give them
no
props.
prop mod for aligning. It was full tank fit, so that does look very much to me like it's a Hell that is set up for block scale warfare rather than some nano Hell dude. I'll give them that.
And look at all the dreads on the kill mail. So they have dropped dreads in this war. How about that? Now you know.
We'll give them that. We'll give them that.
There was a fight over a Fortizar where PanFam dropped beamers, I think, already as well. I think it was a while ago.
So not part of this war.
Yeah, so no, at the end of the day...
I mean, within like the last couple of weeks or so.
At the end of the day, this thing is just getting warmed up, right? It's just getting started. But you wanted to talk about the State of the Union. What struck you about the State of the Union? Or did we want to talk about the Reddit posting first?
No. I mean, what strikes me about every single State of the Union since the Citadel era is that it is very much every single one of them for the last sort of 9 years or however long it's been has been this is finally it, yeah, here we go, and then a year later, this is finally it, yeah, here we go, then this is finally it, yeah, here we go, and I've never really seen them go like they say, I mean,
so what do you expect?
What I expect is a short-term outskirts of an empire glassing campaign and then a return home with the spoils of war, which is usually just going to largely be salvage of Citadel wrecks.
I mean, I guess, but also holding the space and being able to have jump gates to the enemy's doorstep.
We'll certainly see.
Basically.
We'll certainly see. Basically, if I'm proved wrong on this, that's so great for the game and the players every single time.
Yeah, always.
Speaking of the players, we have a big spike in the PCU.
We didn't have a spike in the PCU at all. What do you mean?
It's the highest, what do you call it? The highest login at any one time of 2025, I think. And it's higher than the 2024 peak count as well. But people are saying because of a war. But people are also kind of ignoring the fact that there's a week of very cheap Omega in the Nest store at the moment, and I'm wondering how many of those player accounts are now, Omega'd alpha clones, turbo mining or turbo ratting or whatever.
I mean, additionally, we saw a notable spike in concurrent users during the Goon move as well, but that was to move. Right. Rather than to really
don't forget
do much from moving.
Don't forget that there was also a major expansion that just released on Tuesday, right, guys?
There's a major expansion twice a year, every year, more or less, in recent years, at least. And this is bigger than last year, so that's great.
Huge.
Yeah.
Massive stuff.
I mean, there's 31,000 on right now. Let's have a quick little look at the last few days chart. Doctor, get me the charts.
I think you can get your own charts.
You say it's a huge expansion, but what did they really add? A couple of sub upgrades, a couple of new ships, and a reverted balance pass. That's the patch, right? Tell me, I'm not joking, right? I'm not being facetious. Tell me what is in the patch other than some sub upgrades, new ships, and a reverted balance pass from last fucking 5 years ago.
So calm. I think I can fairly lay out what the major features of this expansion, let's call it an expansion because that's what CCP call it. I can lay out the features, okay. the main feature of this expansion. It is, of course, freelance jobs, which turns out to be where you say to a player, hey, somebody bring me some Veldspar. Somebody get some Veldspar and I will give you 1 million ISK. And then the person who set it doesn't even get the Veldspar.
Why doesn't the person get the Veldspar?
The person who mined it keeps the Veldspar. You're just paying somebody to mine their own shit, effectively. The deliver items job, which is probably the most important job, does not exist yet.
Try and stay calm. This feature is just giving people money out of the goodness of your heart. It is what it sounds like.
I think the intention of the mine blah.
Look at Redline's face. He's struggling to process how dumb that sounds.
I think in corp projects, right, the intention of the mine blah and you get ISK is to boost ADMs. But in freelance jobs, are you encouraging other people to come and mine in your space who aren't already in your corps? I don't really understand it. The deliver items job, which is the most important one probably for this, is absent and is allegedly coming later. The damage capsuleers one suffers from the old bounty hunting problem where people sign up to it with their ults and just damage themselves while repping themselves. It's very much a non-starter. I've not seen any jobs that are impactful to this game in any way. I would like to point out to everybody in chat, though, there is a Kill Phantomite job available in Amamake, which so far nobody has claimed on, and that's not from Phantomite not undocking, just nobody has shot him yet, which is...
How do I donate money to
that? You would, I think you could start your own job. You could, I would imagine there's nothing to stop multiple people from making the same job. But anyways, that is the new feature of the expansion.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
I've so far made 1,000 ISK off damaging people, by the way.
Nice.
Wowzers.
Which,
nice.
I'm rich.
I think that, something that I will say, and I want to, this is praise for CCP, is that the mere reversion of a previous change, namely the resist change, is a major balance shake-up for notably low sec, for the meta. And quite frankly, I mean, Pius, I know you're mentioning this to me the other day, but I think CCP is a little bit too frightened to do an entire expansion which is just balance and fixes. Who here, well, obviously you do, Pius, who here remembers the Crucible expansion?
Well, now, before we go too far into this, did we want to stay on one topic for more than 35.5 seconds? Or do we want to keep jumping around like rabbits in a garden? Because I'm cool either way. I just want
to make this one point, and then I think that we have just a little bit before we come to the initiative deployment. I think we want to just talk about something that everybody in the world already knows, which is just how garbage Reddit is. But I don't know. Well, I know Puce was. Redline, I don't think you were. Calm. Were you playing at the time of the Crucible expansion? Maybe not. Hello. So, for anybody that doesn't know,
semi-AFK.
The Crucible expansion, and it was their named expansion again. The Crucible expansion was exclusively tweaks to the graphics, overhauls of the balance of ships and weapons, and fixes to bugs. It was a gigantic list of rebalances, fixes, and improvements to existing systems only. It was not an expansion that boasted new content or brand new ships. Tell a lie. It might have.
Apparently, you're a liar.
Cruisers. Well, it might have had the attack battle cruisers, but it was an expansion that was about fixing Eve up. And quite frankly, I think CCP
it was tie-dye and the introduction of attack battle cruisers. A whole new line of ships.
Tie-dye is an improvement to the existing game. It's not a brand. It's not a like this is a whole new thing Eve can do, type thing. What I would really love to see is Crucible 2. I want to see, and I know that thousands of current players and thousands of people who have left the game would absolutely be energized by seeing CCP say, we've put all of our teams to work on improving the current game rather than making a brand new feature. And if they did that, they would get a massive cheer if it was an expansion that they launched at FanFest. They would get resubs if it was a expansion just sort of launched in the winter, something like that. And it would change the face of the game. It would freshen every meta if it was an expansion of ship and weapon balance. And it would just make the game... it's what we want. It's what we want. We don't give a toss about a feature coming to the game that is incomplete and doesn't really do anything, like freelancing. We don't give a toss. But far more people are far more interested in the Surgical Strike Resist unnerf than they are anything else in the expansion whatsoever. And that's just one change. That's just one change. It'd be great.
You've got to remember though, like you're talking from the viewpoint of someone who is a veteran player, right? And like, what is the actual breakdown of the player base of Eve who regularly log in, like, you know, on a weekly basis? How many of them are like veteran players who've been playing for, you know, 8 to 10 years or more? Like, it's not the majority. It's not.
No, listen, hey, I can absolutely, agree with that. However, even somebody who's only been playing for 2 years would absolutely love to see portions of their game get improved, fixed, or rebalanced.
I think you also have to think about the current meta of the game. A lot of ships aren't used for anything. You just don't really see them. There are some ships which are incredibly prevalent. I think for new players, seeing a larger variety of ships that they can aspire to fly is better. It will keep them engaged more than just seeing ENIs all over the place or just seeing comets. Something.
How many ships do you need to be in this game? There's like fucking 360 different hulls in this game, dude.
There are 360 different hulls in the game.
We're talking about improving the existing ones, not adding more.
So hold on, let me offer a counterpoint. I don't think that an expansion to the video game should be just about balance passes. I think that balance passes should be done regularly, more regularly than an expansion is released. So I'll put it that way.
I absolutely agree with that. But the way that CCP has shown that they work, they don't do that.
Right. No, and I totally understand that. Remember, I'm the guy that expected to be able to jump into M2. So that's, I get it. But that's still what I wish,
You've got to remember as well, right? Like, at the glacial pace that CCP does put out balance updates, they still frequently get it wrong. So for them to put out more rapid balance updates, it's akin to like trying to make a latte on a roller coaster, right?
Yeah,
sure. But rapid, rapid balance updates.
Here's the thing, Carmen. If you make a latte on a roller coaster, at least you get some latte, right? Right now, we're not getting any. I mean, we got a little bit with this patch. A little bit.
Rapid balance updates also mean that you can, if it goes wrong, you can rapidly fix it again.
Not 6 months later.
Yeah.
But
that is a true fact. And that's kind of
6 months feels pretty optimistic.
Right, and that's kind of the thing. Like you said, CSP, they move at a glacial pace. So having rapid or even quick iterations is hard to expect.
I'm not denying that CCP moves at an incredibly slow pace. I'm saying that if this is the CCP we've got and they move at a glacially slow pace, can we not bother introducing a broken, useless feature like freelancing and instead pour that effort into something existing?
You're looking at this from the point of view of a player, right? Whereas, from CCP's business perspective, fixing stuff that they fucked up and broke ages ago is not a back of the box bullet point on what is supposed to be, what is driving their user acquisition, which is the expansions, right? The expansions are there to be like, oh yeah, hey, look at this cool new thing, you should totally go and play the game. And honestly, for 70-80% of people who've lapsed their subscription, balance fixes are not that. And I appreciate that's not something that you want to hear, and it's not what probably most people want to hear, but that is the reality of it.
But somebody who's let their subscription lapse is no longer a new player. They're just a player who has decided that there's nothing for them in the game, so they've let their subscription lapse. Maybe if there was something in the game for them.
Like a war.
I think that it's more reasonable. It's more reasonable to say that it's not a good look for all of the new stuff in the expansions to be end game content. Maybe some of that stuff needs to be more kind of early game, kind of newer player focused.
Yeah, sure. I mean, freelancing on the face of it certainly looks like it's extremely new player friendly thing because here's some objectives that you can easily get into picking up and trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I think that's a bad example just because it's a extremely weird feature to add.
Yeah. I mean, if we're done on that, then I think there was some slop you wanted to bring up, Puce.
Slop, yeah. So if you frequent the horrendous dank cave that is r/Eve, you've probably seen a vast uptick in propaganda mostly from goons, is what I've seen. You've also seen a vast uptick in AI propaganda. And I think we can all agree that AI propaganda is awful. It used to be we had people who actually had proper artistic talent producing propaganda. Some of it was shit, obviously, but a lot of it was actually, quite funny and decent. Now we've got a AI poster that has been shat out of ChatGPT or something and is now posted on Reddit, and just infuriates me.
It's appearing. It's not sort of getting immediately and overwhelmingly downvoted to the point where a visitor browsing by hot doesn't see it. It is just appearing in the top there.
It is.
I mean, obviously,
it is
this
getting
isn't
the
going to be
upvotes.
limited to just r/Eve, but this is where we go. This is where we're seeing it, and I think that everybody who feels that their AI generated anything deserves the eyes of any of the players here should probably just go and sit in a dark corner and just think about their life and how pointless it is.
I have an idea. How about you go sit in a dark corner and mind your own fucking business, block the AI posters, and move on with your day? Simple as that.
There's so many of them. I also
it's very easy
to
just block and move on, but also like r/Eve and Reddit in general is a cesspool anyways. So like, who cares what's on it? At the end of the day,
I do also
it's
think
bad stuff.
it is a bit of a signifier of how interesting this war is, in that a lot of people are trying to grab onto anything they can and say, look, it's happening, it's happening. I think we saw this with the headliner Keep Tar fiasco, in that immediately there were about 15 different posts about a guy misspelling something. Yeah, it's funny that they didn't actually kill the Keepstar. Does it need 15 posts about it? Yeah, it seems like not a lot is happening to me, and every time something small happens, people are grabbing onto it to say this is a war, guys.
It feels like a sort of when the posting about a joke that is unfunny reaches such a high level. It really says to me that these people have so little going on that that they are, they've been thrown a stale crust of bread and they're trying to parade it around like it's a 3-course meal. But I think that's probably about as far as that one goes. If you're going to post on Reddit, first of all, I'm sorry for whatever's happened in your life that makes you want to do that, but please try harder. Maybe pick something that's actually funny.
Oh.
And if you can't think of anything that's funny,
the dig, ask ChatGPT.
Was
that not the point?
Absolutely,
that wasn't the
sky
point?
high levels of unfunny.
I heard someone say recently, if you're having trouble being creative, ask ChatGPT for tips on being creative.
Tips on being creative. So listen.
Right.
ChatGPT, how do I invade Pureblind?
Exactly.
Harmon, can we find out? How's it going?
Talk to us. I need to know about this, because I've been waiting for like the big let's fucking go pings, and I haven't seen any. What's happening within it? What are they doing?
I mean, we'd like to know too.
Have they had their own sort of, maybe, a week or two earlier than Goons, had their own grand chest beating, we're going to war, and then not a lot really happening?
Absolutely not. So, like, what happened in Pureblind and kind of, I guess, is going on currently in Pureblind, like, the initiative of kind of, I don't know what the word is for this, but they've kind of like farmed themselves out of having any content in where they live in EUTZ, and they don't really have a lot to do. So they kind of framed this deployment to X-Tac 7 in Pureblind as them kind of going on the, not really going on the offensive, but it's like a content deployment, and they're going to go up there and try and create some fights. And they kind of spun this narrative that, Winter Coalition and Fraternity in particular have been, one of the few large null blocks to kind of still give good fights and that kind of thing, and they're going to go up there, get some content, and have some fun. And then the reality is, since they've turned up there, they've pretty much done nothing apart from undock T1 Ferox fleets and then run away from everything or feed, and then run around in Kikis and try and structure bash structures and then run away. And that's all they've done really since they got here. and then complain about it. Like Darkshines was on Mumble, I think yesterday, repeatedly like complaining that Fraternity doesn't give good fights anymore. It's like, bro, you fucking moved like 1,500 caps to our border and started shooting all of our Sov. Like, what the fuck did you think was going to happen?
I mean, maybe some kind of a. They've got enough guys. How many people have they been forming for these T1 Ferox fleets?
I mean, they're filling the fleets, right? But they're like in their prime time, which is like EU prime time. Like in it can fill like what 3 fleets, 3.5 fleets, which is it's like 1,000 people roughly, right? Something close to that. And obviously, Fraternity's timers are all in China time zone, which is around the period of like 1100 to 1400 Eve time, because that's when most of Fraternity plays the game. And
so when Europeans are either at work or sleeping in because it's the weekend.
Yeah, but I mean, we kind of expected that they were going to create fights for the weekends because that's when the Euros can be around, and it is very, very heavily, densely centric on EU. So we were like, okay, we'll get some fights on weekends in the China time zone. Like that'll be fun. And then they kind of turn the first day that they deployed, they formed I think 3 fleets of Feroxes, and just like we camped the station they were formed in with like 3 battleship fleets and like beamers and stuff like that. And they just kind of fed a bunch of Feroxes and just logged off, I think. And then ever since then, I don't think I've seen them form more than like 400 people in China time zone on a weekend. At most, it's normally less than that. And
obviously,
they just kind of
everybody else in the chat who doesn't know, because obviously I definitely know what a beamer is, but do you want to tell everybody else what a beamer is in this context?
Okay, so beamers are like long-range anti-battleship dreadnoughts. So it's effective, like in the same way that like dropping a fax can begin a capital escalation. Like beamers are also like the beginning of a capital escalation as well. But they're kind of very much like a force multiplier that kills battleships very quickly at long range.
Who was it last? There was a CSM candidate from a block last year that said that one thing they wanted to ask CCP to do was nerf dreadnoughts because they were. Because the dreadnoughts couldn't be. There's nothing you could do about getting your subs popped by dreads in nullsec.
Zentage, I believe, was the guy.
Ah, okay. So somebody who actually made it in. Okay,
yeah,
carry on.
He made it in. Yeah, he did.
The irony of that is that there's a really obvious, simple counter to beamers, right? Like, if your enemy is going to use dreadnoughts, use your own dreadnoughts.
No.
Well, I mean, they've only moved, according to you, 1,500 caps in. What makes you think any of them have any dreads whatsoever?
But if we use our own dreadnoughts, the enemy might use their dreadnoughts.
It was over 1,000 dreads. Well, the last time they tried to fucking fight us with dreads and Pureblind, it didn't go very well for them.
What's the in Pureblind? What is the reachability distance for Fraternity compared to Initiative?
So the majority of the fights or things that are being fought over are happening within direct Titan bridge range of X-Tech 7, which is where Init is living. And for Fraternity, we live in Fortec H, which is a little bit away from that. We have to take, I think it's about 7 gates via jump bridges to get there. It's like 2 regions away to get there, but taking sort of a short route via jump bridges, and then a Titan bridge as well.
They are closer to this front line than you are.
They live on the front line. They're like fucking right next door to it,
and they can't counter dreadnoughts in any way whatsoever. There's no conceivable way that they could deal with dreads.
They can. They are just unwilling to.
Yeah. So a better word is won't. Basically, if cowardice were a disease, they would be sick.
Listen, in the name of balance, if anybody from the Initiative would like to, then please do join the Untethered Discord, which I'm sure within a few minutes, Redline will be able to post an invitation in the chat and tell us
a bot for it, actually.
why you're not a bunch of cowards.
That's not fair. Like, come on, like I'm not going to sit here and say that they are able to win in this time zone and they're just like not brave enough for it or not smart enough for it. Like, if they try and like heavily contest us in China time zone, like they're going to get swarmed by subcaps. We're going to reinforce way more heavy than they can, right?
Of course.
So like it's reasonable what they're doing.
But wouldn't it be fun?
But if you go into that knowing that that's the situation, don't fucking whinge about it afterwards.
Come,
like they knew what they were getting into.
How would you assess your EU prime numbers against their EU prime numbers?
Like 15% of what they can form, probably at best.
Okay. Is there any rough part of the day in which you think it could start to be roughly equal abilities numbers wise?
Definitely, like in the EU TZ to US TZ crossover, like there's definitely like a window there where things can become fairly even. But it's a time zone where honestly nobody really wants to be awake playing at that time.
Do you have, and if not, have you considered putting down any structures for content purposes with a timer in those time zones?
Well, no, why would we? Like all of our structures are already anchored because we live here.
I know, but in addition, why wouldn't you put down a content Fortizar at a time that was conducive to a more equal fight?
Like there's no reason for us to do that, right? Like these guys are on our doorstep trying to, create fights here. Like why would we choose a situation in which we have like not the most benefit we potentially could have?
I think you also forget.
Like they're in our space every day. Like why would we try and create a fight where we don't have a good fight from them?
But you're not willing to give them an equal footing.
No, this is
a double think here.
You're missing
the. We are not asking for a good fight.
They are asking.
I'm not asking for a good fight from them at all. Like, if they want to come here and attack our stuff, we're going to fucking drop a hammer on them. Like, if they want to come to our space and attack our space, we're going to drop a fucking hammer on their head. Like, they are the ones who have come here to try and fight us in our prime time, which is their off time zone, and then they are complaining that we're not giving them a fair fight.
Okay.
Like, do me a favor.
What do you want out of your time in Eve?
Honestly, like I'm just interested in like finding fun situations which are interesting, and increasingly as time goes on, I'm finding that like the larger block style warfare stuff is like not the stuff that is the most interesting. It's actually very tiring, and it's very like the same everywhere. Like all of the blocks do the same thing. They all use the same strategies. They all use the same tactics. It's all very much the same everywhere, and it's all very grating, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Now, obviously, my suggestion here wasn't that you make key important assets vulnerable outside of your strongest time. My suggestion here was that you anchor an additional no stakes item that doesn't really matter if you lose it, just for the purposes of having a timer during an interesting time.
Your suggestion is to give init content when they are the ones coming looking for it. So they
but
can
it does work both ways, in that Frat also gets content from that fight.
Yeah, you're here for a good time. I'm not asking you to make a chink in your armor that's going to let them harm you notably. I'm suggesting that you put in something additional superfluous.
It is not fun.
With a good timer. Then why are you playing?
That's not. Let me try to just make sure that I understand what you are trying to suggest. So, because the initiative is incapable of creating their own content, you are suggesting that, I'm sorry, not creating it, but participating in the content that they have chosen to attempt to create due to time zone or whatever, that fraternity, instead of continuing to hold the defender's advantage that they currently do. Hold on. That instead of that, they
can't say instead because that's not what I meant.
No, but if you're gonna put content out, you're gonna want to defend it, right? So you want them to put out something so that init can have a little chew toy to play with? I don't.
Well, you attract init to play with the chew toy, and then you punch them.
I've said some mean things, but I've never likened init to dogs, friend. I mean, I think it.
Fant's point.
You might be the only one, Redline.
You put out something that's going to attract init to attack them in a time zone where you have sort of equal numbers, and then your equal numbers fight their equal numbers over something that doesn't really matter, but everybody gets a fight.
It is.
Whereas at the moment, you've got that time zone mismatch.
So we have other areas of space that we can go to create content, right? Like we don't need to create content in USC within it. We have our USCs doing other stuff. They're having fun other places. We don't need to do that.
So my question is, why isn't it there?
That's the great question that I would love to hear a realistic answer to, because they're obviously not here to get fights.
Well, to me, this sounds like another, hey guys, we're having a war, don't unsubscribe from the game, don't leave in it, we're having a war. But it's not actually a war. It's just deploying to someplace and then nothing really happens.
But it's so with deployments, like you have to see where you can strike, right? You don't strike at the heart from the very jump, but the thing is that Rat's 2 regions away from this anyways. So in it, I mean, what has in it done in the last, I don't know, 3 days? Because it's been a weekend. This is a great time to get fights. What's been the content range the last few days, Carmen?
I think yesterday they brought a Ferox fleet into Pureblind to shoot a jump bridge, I think. There was a rock fleet. Was that yesterday? Yeah, they took a rock fleet yesterday that got a fight against our own rock fleet and died. I don't think they planned that fight. I think they just kind of like they got caught basically when they were trying to run away. Today they brought some Kikimoros into Lowsec and shot a few moon drills and then went home. Lowsec, that was like the opposite end of our space from where their deployment is, by the way. Like it's really just not been very much. Like I mean, I'm kind of been surprised at again, like I said, glacial is a really good like word to use to describe their deployment, because they just haven't really done anything. Like they don't seem like they're interested in taking any kind of like big fights. They're just gonna kind of try and get a little skirmish here or there, shoot some structures, and then flash form and bridge and try and kill a jump bridge before we can get there, and then run home. Like it's all just kind of like
what could they do? What would you like to see from them that would turn? Because the evidence that you've got now in front of you is of cowardice. What could they do that would turn that opinion around for you, as an example?
Cowardice is not the word that I would use, and I don't think it's even fair to say that it is that, right? Because like they're making realistic decisions that they frequently don't have a great opportunity at winning in a lot of these situations, right? So it's not cowardice. It's more like they've just kind of signed themselves up for a situation where it was always going to be very difficult, but now they're complaining about it. Like they knew what they were getting into.
Okay, all right.
What other choice?
This is my question here.
Go on, sorry.
Surely they would have. They know already that the time zone mismatch exists, right? Surely they would have known this before they announced the deployment. Why would they announce the deployment? Is it because Frat is the only thing that is close by for them to get to?
Yeah, I mean,
is this
what
because
else is
Brave
there?
is now Imperium aligned, but surely they did the big reset? Why can't they go to Delve?
Well, there's already SIGs in Delve doing things there. But they're Horde
So
SIGs.
there was a time. There was a
Why?
time when Init was spending a lot of time creating content with Phoenix Coalition, who live up in Pureblind, and that kind of culminated in a Fortizar that Snuffed Out dropped on the Lowsec border, and Init frequently were helping Snuffed Out to defend it from dying. And we would obviously turn up to go and help Phoenix Co, because it's kind of a bit shitty, this new coalition getting bullied by like Snuffed Out and Init. So Darkshine's apparently reached out to someone and was very, very worried that we were going to end up bluing Phoenix Co. And that was the result of that was Init withdrew from Pureblind completely, and they just like let the Snuffed Out fort die pretty much. So I think that part of the reason that they're not doing anything to poke Phoenix Co is because they're very worried they'll kind of push them towards becoming a part of Winter Co. And Darkshines is very, very worried about having Winter Co on his border, basically.
I see.
Well, but there's a time zone difference. They could just put everything for the time zone in which they're the strongest.
I mean, in addition to that, though, just from the chat, it seems like Init is also helping deal with like SIGs that are trying to take timers in Delve. Because there have been some SOV timers coming up in Delve, structure timers, all that fun stuff. So I mean, Init's got to be there defending them too. That was their commitment when Goons moved away. They take care of Brave.
It's like maybe everyone should just unblue each other and start shooting each other.
I mean, that's what's trying to happen. But Init has to make a choice between defending Brave and attacking, Pureblind.
Why don't Init attack Brave?
Yeah, we should all just unblue each other and then turn up to defend each other's times anyway, and just be like, oh yeah, no, we haven't got standings, we're neutral.
Well, like the last few years, where
it had a
Initiative was
great
definitely not
unblowing.
part of the Imperium.
Well, exactly. What happened to the Great Reset or whatever it was called, where they said, "Yeah, we're going to shoot everybody now," and now they seem to not be doing that and just going to frat, despite the time zone mismatch, and complaining about it.
Yeah, or like their relationship with Snuffed Out is not exactly very neutral, is it? Let's be honest. They're basically.
It would be amazing to get somebody from in here, but we don't seem to have that. So we're just going to have to speculate, I guess, on what they're doing. But it seems to me they've just gone in the wrong direction when they could have gone south and shot people in the same time zone as them.
Right. I mean, they could have. But there's also, I mean, there is some overlap where there can be some content. You know, there's a few hours there. So I'm sure that once, you know, everybody gets on board, maybe they'll make some timers. Maybe they'll try to drop something a little bit further in to the space that's important. I don't know, maybe they'll come attack Declan. Who knows?
You know, like there's a lot of stuff that it could be doing to kind of be more aggressive and try and like force more fights in their advantage and stuff like that, but they just don't seem to even want to try from what I've seen so far.
Okay, like what kind of things might you give them some ideas? Give them some ideas because they're clearly
I don't want to give them any ideas because if they're not smart enough to work this shit out themselves, they don't deserve to have the option.
I might challenge you and say that I don't believe you that there are things that they could be doing that they're not doing.
Yeah, like go and drop offensive Astras and EUTZ, right? Like that's something they could do. That
they
would, like...
should put down a content citadel. I mean,
well, they're the ones that came here wanting fights.
Yeah, sure. Well, no, I think that's valid. Why are they not putting down a Fortizar and setting it to a time zone where they can get a good fight? You know,
yeah. I mean, I'm kind of surprised why they didn't drop already.
To deploy for this, they've told all of their members to deploy to this. Why are the membership of Initiative not asking for them to do something that costs virtually no money, specifically to generate the content that they've been told to go there for?
Yeah, I mean, like when they deployed to X-Tac 7, why didn't they just drop an EUTZ timed fort in X-Tac 7 on a weekend where they could just
even alongside their defensively timed one?
Is it a jump clone?
We're not asking them to only have one citadel.
What kind of a deployment is it? Jump clone or death clone?
It's jump clones.
Okay.
It's jump clones.
Okay, so we can cut them some slack. So if they're just there going around,
why don't they just death clone and then jump clone back home if they need to? It's not really a deployment if they're dying all the way back many regions behind the front line, is it?
I mean, there's a difference between like a content deployment and a like, hey, we're invading this region of space deployment. So you can look at the two deployments on either side. They're different, right? So goons, they are now living on the front lines, like actually living there. So, and it's not living in Pureblind. They are living in Fountain, and they're just jumping to Pureblind whenever there's stuff going on up there. Or if they need to make stuff going, like if they need to make something go on. But otherwise, they've got Brave to defend. And Brave never stops getting attacked, which is amazing for Brave.
Makes me kind of want to join Brave.
I don't know, dude.
We should join Brave.
I'm not sure how anyone in Brave has any money or any time to do anything other than feed and a fight.
I'm not sure how people in Nullsec have trouble with money, given that they're apparently so reluctant to go out and lose the ships.
Kind of agree.
It's because every time things get more expensive, our lovely FCs choose a more expensive doctrine for us to fly.
I got a couple. Well, yeah, all those T1 Feroxes are so expensive. Calm, I've got a sort of a hypothetical and a opinion kind of question for you. Which one do you want first?
I'll let you decide. I know you like making decisions.
Let's go with a hypothetical. Do you think that there are any game design problems which are holding either side back from some fun in this?
Oh my god, I nearly spat my beer out on my monitor. Do I think there's any game design problems? Like, my god, let me how many hours do we have left of the show?
Let's say specifically that you're taking note of in this particular conflict.
I mean, it's difficult to like constrain like what is affecting this particular conflict, because like the fundamental dumb design decisions like really just impacts kind of everything. And it's a lot of the same stuff that you guys have heard everywhere else, right? Like, projection is really stupid. Like the fact that soft warfare is just like shooting structures and making timer walls that is stupid. You know, like the focus on shooting structure. There's a lot of gameplay now, which is very prevalent, which is like very like things which don't really, it's like non-interactable gameplay, right? Like, I'll part of my soft warfare is I'm going to get 150 dudes and go shoot structures for an hour and then go home, and like that's not a one-off like rare thing. That's like a regular thing, is for you to engage with not other players. Okay. Like the way that fleet combat works is fucking dumb in like so many ways. It's unbelievable.
Well, so that we don't talk about ansiblexes, when we come to fleet combat and the way it works, this is more of I'm throwing it out there. To be clear, I don't think that this is simply a good idea, but I very much feel that the game could start to get into a better place ship meta-wise if there was no such thing as optimal bonuses on any ships anymore.
I mean, I don't know that I agree with that. I mean,
because it does just make them stand out.
You're basically saying that long-range ships are too good. Like that's basically what you're saying.
I'm saying that long range. Yeah. Okay. No, I'll go with it. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like it's reasonable that there should be a place for long-range ships.
They're too flexible. I'll go with that.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I mean, at the moment the problem is like the rock, and like the rock is just too good. Too much HP, too much range, too much damage. It as a stat stick nullsec ship, which is genuinely like a thing that is important in nullsec warfare. It is just that much better than everything else and cheap. Like it's the same with the Ferox Navy issue. It's just that much better than everything else and cheap.
You can include the vanilla Ferox in this as well, because it's still a supremely powerful ship for the money.
It's decent. Yeah, it's very cost effective, but it loses to a lot of other stuff. But it's cost effective. I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I wouldn't necessarily say that these problems are like because it's a long range ship. The problem is because it's fucking overpowered, right? Like the range is not like the reason. The range is one of several things that are too good about it.
The range is definitely a major reason that people use the.
Yeah, of course, right. But like, if you're gonna have the range, you should have the range with something as a trade-off. And in the past, that was true, and now it is not true.
Because it doesn't just have big EHP, it's a resist based extra EHP, which even allows it to be repped more effectively against more damage. I'm going to guess that at the kind of scale that you're working at, you're not really placing as much trust in its remote rep ability. However.
Yeah, no, I mean, at the scale of fights where rocks are used, it's just all buffer. Like, you're not catching reps. You either die or you don't. That's just it.
Do you think that the rock would still be a viable? I mean, obviously, it wouldn't be chosen as much, but do you think the rock would still be chosen as much as it is now if it didn't have a optimal bonus? I mean, I haven't thought about what I might give it instead, but obviously it does give you obscene range compared to other battleships.
I think it'd probably still be used and it'd probably still be popular.
But not as popular.
I think it'll probably still be quite popular, I think.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I suppose that large railguns, even without a optimal bonus, are still extremely flexible on their capable ranges.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what does that bring down the effective fighting range at to, right? And if it's still like 200k, then you're golden. Like, it doesn't really change anything.
Yeah.
Is there another battleship that can reach the same range as a rock? I'm pretty sure there isn't.
Yes, but not with the same DPS.
Yeah.
Like, there's a bunch of other stuff that can shoot that far.
And there was something else that was viable. Do you think you'd see more rail megas? I don't know.
I mean, you'd never see a rail mega.
Like, I'm not a fan of like just making things so that the ships just all fit the same profile, right? Like, if the rock is going to be the thing that's good at long range, then that's great, but make it shit at other things. Like give it a tracking debuff in the roll bonus, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think all the ships should have their own sort of niche, but I think that things should be viable. Whereas at the moment, it seems the Rock is long range, but also just like outperforms everything because nothing can get to it. Does that
Right,
make
but
sense?
that's within the parameters of certain types of fights, right? Like the types of fights where we're
Yes.
seeing these ships become, very very strong in their their kind of narrow use case, right? Because the other one that's been quite popular recently is the goons have adopted the Raven Navy issue, right, as well, which has been kind of similarly quite good. And the only time these ships ever get used, right, is fucking Fortizar fights. It is Fortizar fights and Keepstar fights. If you want to try and fight over like an iHub timer with rocks, you're going to see how shit they are at that job.
Okay. Do you think there's you mentioned being used in Citadel fights? Do you think there's anything about it's another thing that we could have several hours on, so I will narrow it to Citadel structures generally. Do you think there's anything about Citadels that you think would make for a more fun warfare landscape?
I think I think they fundamentally need to be redesigned from the ground up because I don't think they're really achieving any of the goals that they should have from like a combat perspective. From like a utility and kind of like living in space perspective, yeah, they've got a lot of good stuff there, but in terms of like actually fighting over them, there's like nothing interesting about it at all.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's these are subjects that
have been brought up years ago and completely ignored by CCP. Would you say?
Some people might frame it as these are subjects that we keep on talking about, and I don't just mean
but also
me. I don't just mean you. I don't just mean Redline.
What can you do with the Citadel at this point? Because a Citadel is a battlefield. All it does is it sets a time and a place, and then the players determine the rest.
Sort of.
Is there
the role of a Citadel differs depending on the size of the group that's fighting over it.
Is there something in your mind, Camelo, that makes the Rock and the long range fighting? I'm assuming they're cruise Raven navies rather than torps.
Yes.
Is there something about Citadels which makes that kind of fight the only fight you want to have on a Citadel?
Tether's a big one.
Yeah.
Like anti-cap weaponry is kind of part of it, but not really that much of a big deal. Like Tether's really the big one more than anything else. Like PDS used to be a thing as well, but PDS kind of just PDS isn't really. It's not really a thing anymore. It's mostly Tether. Like Tether is like the Tether is the single biggest problem with Citadels and always has been.
Now, obviously, we'll just quickly say it. We know that without an alternative, Tether needs to exist so that you can do things like stage for a fight and bridge through a Titan. We know it needs to exist for those reasons there. What if I'm going to put you on the spot? What do you reckon, even if it's a rough and ready idea, what could we do to finally get rid of Tether in this game entirely?
Why would you want to get rid of Tether in this game entirely? Ridiculous.
I'm not sure I'd want
to answer that.
I'm not sure I would want to suggest anything because like everyone's got their own ideas, right? Everyone wants to play like armchair game designer, right? And realistically, no one is going to have an idea that you just look at and it's like, oh yeah, that fixes everything, and it's like the silver bullet. Like that doesn't exist, pretty much.
Okay, if I was to ask you, obviously it would create its own problems, but what would be a better landscape? Better rather than completely perfect and everything is wonderful.
Have Tether be mass based and have a mass limit on it, so you can tether loads of small ships, but not like 130 Titans.
That's
silly. I had in mind something that almost feels a bit like the opposite of that, namely that only capital ships would be able to tether, but it would be a module that you fit on the capital ship.
That doesn't change anything though, because capitals are the only thing you care about tethering. Like if subcaps can't tether and they die, you don't give a shit. It's like it's a few billions, that's up here.
So from a low sec, smaller perspective, one major issue with tether is that it allows the enemy fleet to pick and choose completely at their leisure with no vulnerability, where they then choose to become vulnerable. and that is with subcaps, obviously.
And
I
of course,
still want people
while
to be able
this
to bridge
enemy
through a
fleet,
Titan without
hold
the
on,
Titan
wait a
all like-
second, time out, hold up. And while this fleet is positioning of its own free will wherever it likes, your fleet is of course anchored in place, correct, and cannot move, or it is
What?
you can't move your
No.
fleet. Okay.
What are you talking about?
I'm trying to tell you that what you just explained as a problem isn't a problem. Positioning
No,
in
it's,
tether.
It's an imbalance between the two sides. One doesn't get to choose when they become vulnerable. The other does get to choose when they become vulnerable.
No,
but
the attacker
to be
definitely
fair,
gets to choose when they become vulnerable. When they warp in, they become vulnerable. That's the point. That's the point of being the attacker.
if we go back to a nullsec point of view, obviously, if we went down the line of caps are not tetherable. Obviously, you need to be able to bridge through a Titan so that you can use it for that purpose.
I tell you what, you make it so something can't tether on a Citadel, you make it so that you never see it in a Citadel fight ever again.
Except that's not true, because we have seen two sides of it's not as often as we would like to see. We have seen two sides of massed caps or even massed Titans fighting over a Citadel where only one side can tether on it.
Yeah, and it's a massive advantage for the side that can. It's probably the single biggest advantage you can have in a Titan fight.
Exactly. And we are still seeing the attacking force still put their caps untethered on that grid because they don't really have any other choice. I mean, at the moment we still have the pause, which in some ways, I know, is the alternative location to stage a capital ship without it being tackleable. But of course, they don't get to unprotect themselves where they stand inside that force field and start being aggressive, like a Titan does when it's tethered.
You say that there's no other alternative, there's no other option, right? And the reason for that is because there's nothing else that is worth taking a Titan fight over. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to predict it right now. I don't think you're ever going to see a Titan fight in open space ever again in the entire history of the game. Like a major Titan fight. Is it going to be over a Peep Star or not happen?
I don't think I could. I don't think I have a contest for that. That sounds like it's probably about right. Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but yeah, no, it's definitely right.
Yeah.
And I mean, changing
obviously,
anything with tether would just make that even worse.
The other thing that hasn't really been mentioned here, which is an aspect of this that a lot of people overlook, is like the actual like physical radius and size of the structures that you're fighting over is a large part of large part of why long range fights actually happen, right? So
preach.
the larger the physical size of the Citadel is, the easier it is to position your fleet at a range where you can hit the structure and the enemy fleet can't hit you without repositioning, right?
I have a solution for this.
And there's a lot of solutions, right? I'm not asking for a solution. I'm trying to explain to you like why this is part of the metagame. Like, that's one of the large reasons that this fucking long range meta exists in Null, is because it's very, very easy to go and shoot a Fortizar at a range where you can shoot it, but the enemy can't shoot you, and you can like dictate range control by moving in and out, like towards and further away from the structure.
Would you say that defensive capabilities? Okay, I'll say that this is what I believe first, so it doesn't just sound like a guiding question, right? Would you agree that defensive strategies and mechanics in the game are massively, massively powerful compared to any offensive capabilities?
The defensive advantages in this game, fighting a large-scale war, have been absolutely fucking astronomical for the better part of 10 years now.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the introduction of the system-wide like Metal Storm effect module things that you can swap out on a whim?
I don't think it'll affect anything in any meaningful way.
Do you not think that you would take advantage of it, given that it costs basically no money and, according to CCP, kind of online's almost instant?
The bonuses are too small. When the bonuses,
take like a 5% bonus or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, sure, you'll take it, right? But it's like, oh yeah, 5% shield HP. Like that'll just bring a fucking shield fleet as well, right? Everyone flies the same stuff in Nullsec.
I think the point is that the enemy brings the enemy brings an armor fleet into your system, and you think, well, form our shield fleet, swap the module, and now we have the buff, and they don't. You don't have the buff already active, and then.
I mean, by definition,
you just wait to see what they bring.
By definition, the interloper, the invading force, are the ones who can't insta-switch the same as you can, because they're in your space. You're not in somewhere where you're equally disadvantaged in terms of swapping ships.
I'm gonna call it right now. Like, it's not gonna change very much.
Okay.
Like the doctrine change and reship advantage is not as big as you think it is.
Okay, fair enough.
I was just wondering how you felt about it. Honestly, I don't really have an opinion on it myself.
I think it's kind of interesting. Like, I mean, like when they first showed like what they were doing with it, and like the bonuses were like 15%. Like, it was outrageously, brokenly strong, of course. I kind of get where they're going with it. Like, it's kind of interesting that they want to have that kind of effect, like be an optional thing you can kind of design your space with. Like, I think that's kind of a cool idea. But I think it's a cool system that they haven't done anything cool with. Like, the bonuses they've chosen to add just aren't really very interesting. There are no unique interactions with different fleet doctrines. Like, if you go and look at like high-class wormholes, they have like crazy wormhole effects, right? Like, there's very, very different stuff that you can do with ships that you can't do other places. And then when you look at the effects they're putting into their SOV system, the bonuses are just like 5% shield. It's completely uninteresting.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Do you think that? Okay, no, I'm not going to ask you. I don't want to ask you guiding questions according to my biases. Here's here's one of my biases, and I don't know how you feel about it. Obviously, you're fully on board with the idea that defensive, large-scale strategic defensive capabilities are massively overpowered compared to any attacking abilities. Do you think that there's anything to the idea of straight up limiting the number of citadels that can be anchored per system in Sovnal?
I mean, would less citadels in general be a benefit? Possibly. Like, these kind of hard caps, like, they just really end up in like really degenerative gameplay though, where it's like, oh, this system can only have 2 forts in it. So on the attacking side, I'm going to anchor 2 forts, and the enemy can't anchor any forts anymore, and then I've won the system. Like, you're basically like you're like meandering back towards Dominion Soft, right? Which everyone thought was terrible.
I mean, one thing that we can obviously look back at is the outpost era, where there was literally one single potential docking spot in any Sovnal system, and no other abilities to dock anywhere under any circumstance. But of course, it wasn't a citadel. It didn't have the same capability. It didn't have the weaponry. It didn't have the tethering. It didn't have the same sheer physical size.
The interesting thing about that era of the game, though, is that there was a lot of things which had reasonable counterplay to them, which, they've had their features kind of converted to the modern era of EVE, and there suddenly is no counterplay available at all. So, things like being able to shoot station services, right, completely gone, right? Like, that was a good way to provoke a fight if you're a roaming gang. That doesn't exist anymore. There used to be, which to be fair has been recently re-added, the ability to stop people using a jump bridge by putting bubbles on it. Like, that is how the original POS jump bridges worked, and that had some pretty cool gameplay to it. Obviously, like, POSes could defend themselves a little bit, which is the thing that's missing from the current jump bridges, which is maybe we lost something there. I think POSes were. I think the auto defense capabilities of POSes are a thing which we're lacking in the game right now. Like, it's a little bit too easy to just go and like reinforce something undefended.
For example, you would want Citadel defenses to be far weaker than they currently are if you wanted them to be able to be automated.
Yeah, of course. But we can kind of go on from that and say like the old Sino jammers that were on a POS, like, yeah, they were quite strong, obviously, but they had no damage cap. Like, they had a counterplay to it. You could just log in a couple of dreads and warp them to the site jammer, and it just dies straight away. Or bridge in like 100 torpedo bombers through the Sino jammer, right? Because coverts still work, and then you can shoot the Sino jammer. Like, there was like counterplay options to these things that in the past. And in the modern era of EVE, many of these things, they have just become more strong and had the counterplay options removed from them. And like that is a thing which is massively to the detriment of the game, is that the decision tree of like things that can happen around that feature is drastically smaller than it used to be in the past. And it removes the ability for emergent gameplay to happen from different avenues of the game interacting with each other in unique and interesting ways.
And are you going to make sure that you run for CSM? Because basically, these are the kind of things that I would genuinely like to see amongst CSM candidates.
God, I fucking hope not, but I think I might have
to. Well, if you're going to be willing to come on this show and be as real as this when it comes to these mechanics, which is a breath of fresh air compared to the last 9 or so years of the Citadel era, from what we hear from nullsec people who are willing to speak about it, then
you
I'm
think
sure
he's
that
the only one that wants Citadels to be changed?
No.
Oh, good.
But what I have seen in the past, overwhelmingly among nullsec candidates, is either disagreement that they need nerfing at all in any way, or agreeing that they need nerfing, but saying no to anything that would meaningfully nerf them.
They need to be changed properly, is the thing. Because
yes.
they are,
and
again,
I think
the
we can see an
primary
example.
battlefield.
I think we can see an example of I'm sorry it's coming back to this as we as we get towards the end of the show before we hand off, but I think that something that we're in danger of seeing at the moment is around Ansiblexes. We've seen CCP make these changes. That's our keyword. We've seen CCP make these changes around tackling people, stopping them from going back through. And these changes have done absolutely not one thing to address the projection issue in the game. But what they have done, ironically, is exclusively harm the individual just passing through them, just to go and go mining or go ratting or just do some dailies or do some exploration, something like that. And my big concern is that, and I am seeing this on Reddit and in Discords from some people in nullsec, is they are saying now it has been dealt with. Why you're just never going to be happy about it, and I'm worried that CCP is going to be extremely CCP about it and not want to touch something again for 2 years because they just recently touched them. Which is why, if there were going to be changes, they have to be real changes.
My suggestion here, right, is that the player base should stop electing brazenly self-serving reprobates to the CSM and have people who can actually represent a fair viewpoint of the players to the fucking company.
And with that,
well, gonna go ahead and send the raid on over, and the mic, the mics are dropped. But no, so what? So I guess the thing with Citadels, and someone was asking in the chat to define properly. So since EVE Online is a sandbox game, especially so in nullsec, I view Citadels as nothing more than a place to have a battle, right? The time and the time is determined by the timer. The place is determined by the defender. There's some wiggle room with the time determined by the defender, etc., etc. But other than that, that's all the Citadel needs to do, is to give people a place to fight. So I think that if instead of changing the Citadels around, they just released new battlefields to fight over, maybe, just maybe, you would have less problems with Citadels. Maybe.
I think it's time we went round for our last words of the evening. Peace. What have you learnt tonight?
The null is kind of just stagnant, but I knew that already. For some context, I was in Pandemic Horde in 2016, I think, and I left the game for several years because of that. But yeah, something needs to change. There needs to be actual objectives to fight over that don't give you a massive defender's advantage. Citadels either need to be looked at, or as Redline says, introduce something else. And please stop posting AI slop. I think that's it for me.
Calm, thank you for coming back on. We'd love to hear from you again. Is there anything you want to leave everyone with for this evening?
I'd stop doing these shows. Every time it's the same thing. It's like it never changes. Like CCP never fixes any of this shit.
Hey, listen, we have partially convinced you to run this year, so there's that.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Honor as always.
We appreciate you being here. Thank you. Redline, where are we off to?
Oh, I mean, we're off to do a raid, obviously. And also, this is going to be my last show for the summer. So these guys will see you next week, but I will not, because I'm going to be outside having fun in real life, touching grass. Something that goons should do if they could. I don't
New
know.
account next week drops by 90%. We're all here for Redline.
It probably won't, but we'll see. Either way, Rain is doing cool stuff. She's been doing some war reporting, like the old school kind of war reporting, not just little blasts, but she always does good with that stuff. So we're gonna send you over there to her. When we get there, what you're gonna do, I don't know, say Redline sends his regards or something like that. Make it funny. Make it funny for us. But until
Ask him
then,
if it's really a war.
Ask her about the real war. But that's it. That's all I've got. Anything else from you guys? Do we just do the waves and I click the button?
We do the wave and we say thank you, everybody, and we will see you again next week. That's what we say.
See you.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.